Welcome to the Exact Digital Podcast, the show where we dive into how digital marketing agencies are using paid media to drive real growth for their clients and for themselves. From planning to ROI and everything in between, we uncover the strategies, stories, and systems that set agencies apart. Each episode, we'll talk with agency leaders who are innovating with paid media, scaling their businesses, and delivering results that matter. Whether you're looking to expand your services or sharpen the edge of your current offerings, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Exact Marketing Advice Podcast. I'm Tasha Grantham, and I'll be your host for today's episode. Today, I have the privilege of having Steven Donaldson with me from Radiant Brands. Steven, how are you today?
I am great, Tasha. Thank you for including me in this.
Absolutely. Excited to have you. In our pre-conversation, there was just so much wonderful information that you gave me, and so I'm excited for you to share it with everybody today. So for any listeners who are just meeting you for the first time or aren't familiar with Radiant Brands, can you tell us what you guys do and what you kind of specialize in?
Sure. Radiant Brands is a creative marketing agency, and we focus on a range of things, but primarily I'd say it's our approach that makes us unique. We love doing creative, but we come from a strategy first approach, and we look at how behavior drives how make people make decisions, which is really critical in how people perceive things and what they do. So that we focus on a combination of urban development, hospitality, retail, and then some innovation and technology companies as well, since we're in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great area to be in for those different industries. So, Stephen, when you say like strategy first, I know when a lot of people think about that, that brings a lot of different things to mind. But can you kind of walk the listeners through what that actually looks like when a new client comes to you?
Sure. The way that looks is when a client comes to us and they talk to us about their goals, we really want to understand their business and where they want to go. Whether they're attempting to get tenants into a building or they want to sell a specific product to a specific audience. Understanding who that audience is helps us then dive into research and looking at what we call the personas, the people who would be most interested in taking action, becoming their customers. And we go through a process sort of defining that with our client. And then that gives us this sense of what are these people like? How can we best reach them? What are the channels that make sense? And what is their culture and their personality like? All those things influence how you reach people and understand their behavior.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do a lot of behavioral things around here, so that makes a ton of sense. So when you talk about that behavioral approach to branding, how do you think about influencing what people believe and trust and ultimately choose?
Oh, that's a great question. I think influence has to be balanced with where people are already coming from, what their experiences and what their current interests are. And so when you put a product or um, again a place or try to connect people to an experience, you're sharing something that you already know they're excited about. So you're connecting with them so you can draw them in. And then that kind of marketing approach allows you to not pound people with things, but to bring them along, to excite them and get them engaged. And that's what I think is so important. I mean, if you look at our own individual experiences, we don't like looking at advertising that's trying to convince us. We already know what we think we know. What we want is something that entices us and draws us in, and then we want to know more. And that's where engagement occurs around behavior. And I think it's really important to keep adapting that and learning about it.
No, absolutely. I say all the time, back 30 years ago, if you owned a business, if you were doing any advertising at all, you were ahead of the curve. Like if you just had a presence in the world, you were ahead of 80% of other businesses. And now, advertising everybody is advertising. And so we've seen a lot of legacy businesses who have just done word of mouth for a really long time and maybe the bare minimum when it comes to advertising. And then all of a sudden they've gotten into this phase in their business where they're like, we feel like we're falling off, like, we're not growing. And what we're finding is that newer businesses that are coming in that are a little more tech savvy are coming in and are dominating those things. And they're really advertising in a way that they're resonating. They have that authentic voice. And so even though they're the new guys on the block, they're really doing marketing right. And they're actually engaging with and kind of meeting that customer where they are and finding out what those deterministic and behaviors are and really hitting the right people with the right message at the right time. And and so I tell everybody it's so important to realize nowadays that if you're not doing that and you're not engaging with your audience in the right way, it's not like you're just sitting still and not moving, because your competitors are moving, and so that gap is widening between you. And so even if you're not doing anything that you weren't doing, you are still falling further and further behind because your competitors are doing other things and they are finding the way to speak to, you know, um, their potential customers in the right way. And so I think that authentic voice, and making sure that we have those personas right and that you're going after that person that is most likely to engage with your brand and to eventually, be loyal to your brand, I think is key in today's industries.
I would say that I totally agree with you about the word you used, authenticity. Authenticity is really building credibility and connection, and that understanding the behavioral component of that. I think authenticity is critical, as you said, and it really brings about trust and connection to people who are customers or potential customers, and that's where the behavioral marketing connects with that as it builds the relationships. And as you said, there are just everyone's on board with marketing and advertising and pushing ideas and products, and how you engage with those is really going to be dependent upon what you hear and understand as a customer and believe is true.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, this is where I think the AI enters the conversation, because I think so many people are trying to use AI now as a shortcut. And I think that it is causing people to um, try to hit the easy button too much, and they're losing some of that brand authenticity. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I totally agree. I recently wrote a blog piece on how AI has turned digital marketing into hyper marketing, hyper connected marketing, because they know about things about you, who you are, maybe your company, what you do. Just because of that, you can get 35 messages a week instead of one. Well, that doesn't necessarily convince me of anything. It's just I'm being overwhelmed, and what here's the factor that's occurring with that, along with large scale advertising. People are tuning out. They're completely tuning out. Um, my kids are in their 20s. They conventional advertising is not have any impact on them. They look at influencers and recommendations in a different way, and that can become a form of advertising because it's again authentic and it builds trust. And so advertisers have to look at where that's going, and that's all evolving every moment. And you just have to be on top of that, whatever your brand is.
Absolutely. I was just talking to somebody who's a mom and she has a kid that's about to go off to college. And she said, used to kids would take campus tours and you would get direct mailer pieces. And she said her son was truly picking colleges that he was interested in based on if he had a college that it was at the top of his list. He was literally going on TikTok and looking at a day in the life of the students there to see if he could see himself enjoying those experiences. And that was really how he was kind of placing his colleges on his list of, hey, I want to check this spot out. And she's like, look, we can't pick our college based on day in the life TikTok videos. And he's like, why not? And so
Well, what's interesting about that, we are in conversation with a developer building a housing project right near UC Berkeley, and they asked us to give them a proposal for a social media marketing campaign. And literally, that's what we're recommending is some students or a student we hire who walks into the units and says, "This looks great. This is where I would like to live." Like their personal experience that they're sharing and building that person's relationship to the place and also the relationship to the audience that identifies with them. And I think that's really how marketing is going to be evolving more and more. And right now in the big media world, we use well-known people who are stars or media people. But I think people are relating more to the individual who's like them. That's the big difference.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And as you know, when you and I grew up, we sat through a movie and, we knew that there was going to be a 2-minute break and that you could get up and refill your drink or whatever it was. But we are now dealing with a whole generation of people who have come up and they are truly at a place where they have had advertisement coming at them left and right from the moment they were born. Every time they turn on the TV, a billboard, every time they go on social media, it's a generation that has never not had social media now coming up. And so
That's right.
I do think that that has created like this level of almost like a cynicism or skepticism of it's not just about putting your name out there, but building trust. And I think that that's what that authentic voice helps do so well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's that authentic trust.
Absolutely. And I think that that is something that we can't ignore as marketers. I think that it's vitally important to the success of any campaign that we run for sure. Um, Yeah, so just jumping over a little bit, and I know that you've talked a little bit about, different placements and things like that, but you have some really uncommon depth in your agency in placemaking and urban development and commercial real estate. So, what's different about branding a place or a destination compared to, say, a traditional business?
It's so interesting. I'm glad you asked that question. A place is conjures up whatever you think, a physical location with a series of experiences that go with it. And if you think of destination branding or as like advertisements for, you're flying to Greece or you're going to France, everyone has an idea what that means. But that also applies to a shopping complex near where you live. Everyone knows the stores that are there or could be there. And when you go to those places, you are not just shopping, you're having an experience. And the property developers that own places, shopping complexes and mixed use development with housing, the ones that do it right curate the experience. They know what works for people to feel good when they come there. And it's not just about buying things. It's about just the whole connection to their friends, what they do when they're there. And that's where placemaking comes in. It's the little details that you can create that make it a I want to come back kind of place. I want to go do that again. And the mix of businesses that can be there from a quick serve cafe that may have Mexican food to a movie theater to a mini golf place. All those are experiences that we can share. And then you can mix in regular retail with that. But that creates a whole different kind of world for people. And, the other thing I would say is somewhat similar is when you go to a theme park, that's really placemaking. That's extreme. But every day, even in downtowns and small neighborhood shopping areas, when they're really working well, it's more curated experience of the owners and the property owners. And we love to work in that because again, it's really about experience and behavior and trying to understand what really works and work with the property owners and developers in the right marketing campaigns can attract an amazing connection of people.
That's wonderful. I love that. sounds like something very valuable that clients definitely need. And I think that that's a level of expertise that not everybody has for sure. Having placemaking experience, I think, is pretty vital. And it is very different from, e-commerce or something on the web. There's definitely something to trying to get somebody to a particular area for sure.
Yeah, and I'll give you one quick example since you mentioned e-commerce. Warby Parker started as a online alternative for buying glasses and sunglasses, and their foundation is discount. They have a huge discount for high quality. Then they started opening stores because they realized people, they want to try glasses on. They want to see what it's like. So now they have, over the last 10 years, they have over 600 small stores. And that's responsible for at least 30 to 40% of their sales, and it connects people back to the e-commerce side. So that relationship between both sides is vital. And another chain of stores that's very similar is Best Buy. You can buy anything on Best Buy online. But they know that if you want to buy a new 90-inch digital HD TV, you want to see it. You want to experience it. So getting you in the store and getting that relationship connected to the online is a combination of placemaking and online e-commerce spirit experience. And the retailers that get this, Walmart's moved into this enormously. It really transforms the relationship and loyalty of customers.
Absolutely. So I'll give you the perfect example of some campaigns that I run, some furniture stores. And I say there are two different types of shoppers in the world. And there are the types of people that are going to go online and they're going to research everything and they're going to walk in the store and they're going to say, I want that one. And those are the people that you really have to hit behaviorally. And then there are going to be people that are going to go shop every single store and they want to look, see, touch, and feel everything. They want to sit on every couch. They want to touch every coffee table. And so, you just have those very tactile people. And so, if you lean too heavy into e-commerce, you lose that customer.
You,
And I
you
think
do,
that
you
that is
do.
exactly what Warby Parker was seeing was that, you know, um, you can take the photo and you can do it online as much as possible, but sometimes you just want to feel the heaviness of your glasses on your face and say, "Is this going to hurt the bridge of my?" And so I think that
Yes,
there's just absolutely different types of people in the world, different personalities that it does tend to affect the way we shop differently as well.
absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah, for sure. So, jumping over into talking a little bit about integrated ecosystems and services. I know your team supports everything from like research over to identity, all the way to like digital campaigns and UX and environmental signage. So, why is it that like full spectrum integration is so important for brands today?
It really, you have to think of brands as creating touch points for their customers and the consumers. And people don't live in a linear world anymore. They don't watch, most people don't even watch programmed TV. And since people live on their phones, they are out and about doing things, they're in a mall, all those places that you run into, all those experiences on a website, all those things are touch points, and they have to be thought of. And we've had to convince clients of this, is that you've got 3 to 5 seconds of someone's time in different places. You want all the places they connect with you through to feel, oh, that's that brand. Whether they're buying now or not, it's all about that. And you have to really understand that behavior of the customer to know where they are in those areas. So that's why it's so critical. And I would say there's no one who's an expert in it at any one time, because it's always changing and evolving depending on technology and what's going on. I mean, 5 years ago, no one would have thought TikTok was a place that you'd have experiences of brands, but it is constantly there, along with shorts on and Instagram and everything else. All those things connect together with the physical world and the e-commerce world.
No, absolutely. And I will tell you, like, I laugh and tell people all the time, if we could hit a customer one time with a campaign and we could absolutely make them buy a product, I'd take all of my meetings from my yacht in Fiji. Um,
Yes,
you know,
I
and so
agree.
it does take so many different touch points. And, I laugh all the time and I say, I do this for a living, but I am so thankful for the companies that do the retargeting. And it's like, hey, you forgot this in your cart. I feel so ADHD sometimes. I'll literally be online buying something and the phone will ring or it'll be time for a meeting. And then it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll come back to this later. And then it's like 3 days later and it's like, I still haven't even thought about it. But then they put it back in front of me and it's like, hey, did you forget this? Or, putting something similar. And it's like, oh, I do need to go back to that. And so, I realize myself as a consumer, it's just so important to make sure that you're staying in front of customers in a meaningful way. And like I look at that in my life and how many times because somebody has stayed in front of me in a meaningful way that it does end up pushing me through the sales funnel to the sale.
I completely agree. And that also retargeting also comes into a factor of when is the right time for people to buy certain things. There's a huge difference between purchasing or leasing an automobile and buying a pair of glasses or getting some products, some cleaning products for home. So all those, you have to understand, you may have to be in front of the customer with, car models for 6 months. And then they make a decision to buy because they've seen it. But you have to be aware of their reaction to what you're doing and the awareness of the products. But you're absolutely right. It's building that awareness and that connection and being there when they're ready to move forward.
Absolutely. And just being in front of them during that decision making cycle. And, like you said, buying the pair of glasses, that decision making cycle can be affected by, hey, people's policies, their insurance starts over on January 1. And so
Yes.
they may be very likely to shop in January and, or they may be looking in December. So, it would be great for like Warby Parker to be putting out advertising, during November and December, knowing that when January rolls around, people are going to start making those purchases or get those new prescriptions in and it's going to be
Yes.
time to get the new glasses kind of thing. And also recognizing that some things have a really long shelf life when people are looking for homes. That's not a willy nilly decision. That's
Right.
something that could definitely take a lot longer. And so, you have to stay in front of them in a very meaningful way throughout that process. And I think that some of that has to determine like campaign life cycles and what that looks like and the seasonality of different things. I think it's so important and that's where being strategy first I feel like really comes full circle. Because I tell everybody you can have the greatest creative and the worst strategy and that campaign will fail every time. It's not
Absolutely.
just about the look and feel of a campaign, but it has to be strategic in the when, the where, the how, the why. And I think that getting back to really strong strategy in a campaign can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think you're right on. Its timing is so critical. And sometimes you don't know. You have to test and figure out what's working. And then you learn where that decision making is. It's critical.
Absolutely. And we've already touched on this a little bit, but I do want to kind of back up to it just a little bit. And I know that you being rooted in the Bay Area with all these innovative ecosystems and things, how do you approach translating all of
Mm.
this complex technology? And how are you guys specifically using AI as a creative accelerator without losing that originality? Can you kind of speak to what you guys are doing personally?
Sure, I'll touch base on both of those. We've had a few technology clients in the last year or so where what we really looked at with them is they tend to get obsessed with what their software or their applications do. And and what we want them to do is two things. Filter out what is it the problem you're solving that's unique with what you're doing. And secondarily, how is that different than what they're doing now? Because people have that short attention span, even in the business to business world of trying to sort through what's real for them and what makes sense for them. And you have to be very clear about that over time. So that's how we try to take the complexity out and make it more straightforward. And when it comes to AI, we have been now, I'd say, a good year into looking at. We work with a variety of online applications in AI as in downloadable components that allow us to do everything from better research and competitive comparisons to coming up with alternative strategies and then looking at those internally. So what I'd say is it's an activation component for us. It allows us to then go back and question what we've been doing and see what may work even better. So I'd say it speeds things up. It makes it more efficient for us. And I think that's how one needs to look at AI. In no way do I look at it as write this strategy and we'll send it to the client or come up with this creative approach. It's going to come up with only the limitations it can see online. We have to see if we know more and then go back and pull things from that. And also, it's really good if you want to look at certain kinds of personas and behaviors. It will give you clues on what kind of brands people are looking at that you may not have thought of. And so we use that. We bring all that together. So it's been very useful in that regard.
Absolutely. I say all the time, I hope AI makes us work smarter, not harder. Um,
Exactly.
but never as a replacement for what we know is good common sense. You know, you truly want to be an expert in your field, and there is so much locked inside and just the way you think about a strategy and things. And sometimes AI can be very cookie cutter, and we don't want to be cookie cutter. We want to be different and unique and stand out in very unique ways. And I think that that is where a lot of people are really missing the boat, is they're trying to use AI as the easy button to replace. And I think that that is a huge mistake in today's society, because that authenticity is what makes the difference in successful marketing, for
Oh,
sure.
I completely agree. And that's where I was saying being hyper overwhelmed with a marketing that doesn't really produce anything except repeated messages that are somewhat targeted towards you. I mean, you're right. It's not about volume, it's about, creativity and quality, and that's the goal we should all be focusing on.
Absolutely. And so just to kind of lead into this next question here. So in this area of cookie cutter marketing, what is something that Radiant Brand focuses on in creating work that really truly feels culturally aware and emotionally resonates with potential customers? And what do you guys ultimately want people to feel when they truly experience a brand that you've helped build?
Oh, that's kind of a complex question. I'd say that what we really want to do is have that emotional connection. And I'd say one of the key things that particularly one person on my team is great at is the storytelling component. If you can take a brand and build relevance to a story that people connect with, and there's an emotional connection, that leads people into valuing and understanding that brand and coming back. And that's one of the critical things that we look at. Storytelling is just the most important thing, and you can't just do that with AI, by the way. You have to really look at what's real in the world. And so that's, I'd say, what we bring into everything, even in websites or in physical locations that we're working with. We want storytelling to be part of that.
Absolutely. And no, I love a good story, and I think that that is truly the difference in getting people's attention and not today is being a great storyteller. So I think you guys do it well. So if there's anybody out there today that feels that Radiant Brands could be a really good fit for them, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you guys?
Well, they could go to they could send an email at info@radiantbrands.com, or they could contact us through our phone number,
Okay.
510-843-0701. And, go to our website, radiantbrands.com, and see what we do and how we talk about what we do. I think it intrigues people to see the range of things that we focus on. and what we like to do. So
Absolutely. It is a story well told. I will say that.
thank
I've
you.
checked it out myself for sure. So, well, Stephen, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate you coming on the podcast today and spending a little bit of time with us. And it's great to get familiar with Radiant Brands and what they do. And I really appreciate your time.
I I appreciate your time too. Thank you, Tasha.
Absolutely. Have a great day.